One of the most popular products in today's world are speakers, and for a good reason. It is very convenient to listen to music, to not have anything inside of your ears, to be able to hear everyone on the outside, and to share your music with your friends. So today we are going to review a pair of speakers. This is an entry-level pair of speakers, the FiiO SP3 Bluetooth. So FiiO originally had released the FiiO SP3, which somehow we missed reviewing, but the new Bluetooth version comes with Bluetooth LDAC aptX, and they also have a few extra features over the original SP3, plus the most important aspect, the price. They are priced quite pocket friendly, and with VAT added, it is $420. I can't really tell you the price without the VAT because AliExpress wouldn't let me see the price without the VAT. So $420 for Europe. It should likely be about 20% less in America and in the rest of the world. So you should be able to get them at around $350 if you don't live in Europe or at least in Romania. Those speakers are some of the most cleverly engineered and designed speakers that I've reviewed ever. It's not like they are large, and as you can see, I can easily hold this in my hand. It has about 2 liters of volume, which is incredibly low for a pair of speakers, but they somehow managed to provide a really full linear sound from about 80 Hz. As the mid-woofer is 3.5 inches in diameter, it means that it won't be able to give you that much bass extension, but otherwise the sound is just completely insane in resolution, clarity, and naturalness. So starting with the active speaker, because this one is the more interesting piece, we have a ton of inputs on the back. We have the 1-inch silk tweeter at the front and the 3.5 inches mid-woofer also at the front. Those come with waveguides, so they will be somewhat directional, and upon testing they are somewhat directional. They should be pointed right at you for you to hear the music as you should, but FiiO includes some rubber pads to help with that, because those rubber pads will keep the speaker angled upwards so that you can sit the speakers on your desk and they should be pointing at you and giving your ears the best performance possible. As you're saying, at the back we have the Bluetooth antenna, which is a cool addition for a Bluetooth speaker. And we also have a USB input so that they work as a USB DAC. We have an optical input, an RCA input, and I think that the sound is a bit better with the RCA input if you have a high-end DAC, for example the FiiO K9 Pro. And we also have an RGB switch which allows you to change the RGB light mode, and at the bottom between the speaker and the rubber pad you are placing them on, you have a plastic fit which has RGB effects. We also have an input/pairing button, we have a volume wheel, and we have a bass wheel. I would allow the bass wheel to sit at the maximum as it comes from the factory, because generally they don't really have a strong bass extension. The mid-woofer being 3.5 inches in diameter means that it won't reproduce bass below 70 Hz at all, so the roll-off will be sharp and it will be quite significant. This is just a limitation of the size and the physical limitation of the speakers, not an engineering problem. In fact, I am shocked that FiiO managed to get about 70 Hz of bass from 2 speakers that I can hold in my hands. They are really tiny and really portable even. And here comes some clever engineering things that FiiO did with the SP3 Bluetooth. First off, the tweeter is protected by a hard shell. That is really important in my opinion, because most people who will afford and who will purchase a pair of speakers may have kids, and kids like to push into those tweeters. So it is a good thing that the tweeter is protected. Even for your own safety during transport, during everything, the tweeter is protected. The mid-woofer also looks very resistant. It looks like it is made of carbon fiber. It looks quite sleek with this carbon fiber model, and the speaker shell is made of metal actually, which is really cool. It keeps them solid, and they remind me a lot of the Aurender S5W. I did review the Aurender S5W quite a few years ago. Those were priced at about $3,000 and somehow FiiO SP3 Bluetooth manages to sound about as detailed as the Aurender S5W. There are some key differences though, some important key differences. The first really important difference being that to connect the FiiO SP3 speakers to one another, you'll have to use this interlink cable. It comes with an 8-pin connector. It seems to be a common connector for active speakers, although I have rarely seen this one. This is because I typically use passive speakers with active amplifiers, so this cable is not a standard there, but for active speakers it is quite standard. I have seen this one before with edifier speakers and such. The cable is quite long by default, but for my setup it is about long enough for them to sit on my desk, not long enough for me to place them on speaker stands. This being said, for a pair of speakers that are about this tall, you likely won't be placing them on stands. The second clever part that FiiO did was to amplify the bass. So at the back we have a reflex port, and the bass is actually very convincing. At first you don't even notice the bass roll-off, and it's not like the music sounds hollow or shallow. It sounds like the sub-bass is entirely missing because there is absolutely no sub-bass, but there is a good amount of mid-bass, a good amount of punchiness, and the sound is actually quite warm. So the mid-range never feels shouty or sibilant or shrill or too bright, which was a problem with the Aurender S5W, as it sounded quite bright and quite sharp. FiiO also made those in such a way that they consume about 80 watts of power, and at least one of them will need to be connected to a power outlet. But another really clever thing that FiiO did with those is that you can switch which is the left and which is the right speaker. I find that to be absolutely genius. It is insanely useful. This is because for most people they will have the power outlet likely closer to one of the speakers, and when you have the power outlet close to one of the speakers, you will pray that that is the left or that that is the right speaker. You don't want to mess with software, with complicated solutions, because the first second you enter that, you won't be using them for everything, and you want to use this pair of speakers for everything. So what they did is that they have a switch at the back. You can switch it between left and right, and it sets the right speaker to be the left and the right, and the other speaker to be the complementary one. It is so useful because, for example, this should be the right speaker, but in my situation, the outlet is closer to the left speaker. So I would have had to go into Windows and reverse the channels if I wanted to use them. That's not a problem. I can simply switch which is the left and which is the right. Top notch. I really like that. Those little details that make a product more useful are why you are purchasing those products in the first place, for convenience. So there is a power delivery of 30 watts for the mid bass and 10 watts for the tweeter. So we have those combined, 40 watts per speaker, 80 watts in total. Most likely this is in class D, although I have not yet read the specification and the marketing information for them. I did listen to them quite a lot and I experimented with them a lot to give you the review of how they feel, how they sound, but I will be presenting the technical data in the full written review, so please check out the full written review if you are curious about how they look on paper. To my ears, they sound very natural, very clean. The sound is extremely controlled actually. There is very low distortion, but a very natural voicing for both male and female voices. There is a bit of a mid-range emphasizes, which is to be expected from the size and the design of the speaker, but the tweeter is really capable. So the tweeter is the most surprising part of this speaker. It sounds like a high-end tweeter. It has resolution, air, definition, clarity, and even micro details. This is insane because those cost less than $400 US for 2 speakers. If I wanted to recommend you a pair of passive speakers with a speaker amplifier right now, I couldn't really find anything at $400 US that sounded even remotely close to how good the FiiO SP3 Bluetooth sounds like in the mid-range and in the treble. Of course, other speakers would reach lower in the bass, but no bookshelf entry-level speaker will have a fuller bass or a much better bass extension. They would likely reach about 50 Hz. In fact, the only thing that is missing from them is a subwoofer output. For example, if you had a subwoofer separate, if FiiO made the subwoofer and you had those speakers, you could actually have a complete listening setup, which was small, convenient, but still had a very good bass. So maybe in the future, FiiO might consider making an SP3 Bluetooth with a subwoofer output and a subwoofer too. The power of those speakers is also insane. They can hold a party easily, although I can see why we wouldn't want to hold a party with the SP3 Bluetooth, as they don't have a lot of bass, and typically for a party you need quite a bit of bass. In Romania we used to frequent a pub. It was named One Up, and the whole audio system of that pub was considerably worse than what FiiO SP3 Bluetooth can deliver. If I took those two and put them in that pub where we used to dance, then those would provide a fuller, more natural sound with better detail and more fit for a party than the whole system in that pub was providing us. So it just left me dumbfounded how good the SP3 can sound like, how natural, how detailed, and what a good resolution they have, considering the price point. You should always consider the price point. If those were priced at $1,000, I wouldn't have been so excited, because there are options at $1,000. But for $400, there is nothing. There is nothing else that I can recommend that would bring you the same level of excitement and with the same amount of convenience of having such a small and cool looking speaker on your desk. As you have the RCA input and the auxiliary input, which sound very good, I should be talking a bit more about the Bluetooth input, which is one of the highlights of why they released a new model. The Bluetooth input sounds detailed, crisp and sharp, and with the SP3 Bluetooth, I don't really notice the difference between the RCA input and the Bluetooth input. It is quite likely that the sound is processed through the same ADC and then through the same amplifier and then through the same DAC and then through the same amplifier. So it is quite likely that we are hearing a very similar presentation, but they just sound super nice from the Bluetooth input. The only situation in which I wouldn't be using the Bluetooth input is for playing games, because both LDAC and aptX and aptX HD have a huge amount of DAC delay. It is at about half a second, which is about 30 frames of content, which will be noticeable to everyone. But that's a limitation of the Bluetooth codec, not a limitation of the FiiO SP3 Bluetooth. Those react as good as you would expect. Also, the sound is quite instantaneous, so there is no delay. You can watch movies, you can play games, everything will happen in real time. I have noticed no issues while using them, and just generally they are super pleasing to use. They are really incredible for the price you're paying and for the size they're at. The most recent speaker that was similar in size that I reviewed was the Audiophile E25 Luna, which also was trying to use a very complex setup of passive radiators to make up for the limited bass extension, but the FiiO SP3 Bluetooth has a much better resolution, a much better clarity, an improved overall micro detail, a wider soundstage, especially if they are pointed correctly at you, and the sound just feels like it's from an entirely different class. The Audiophile E25 Luna was just okay. I ended up not using them anymore because I got bored with the sound. While with the FiiO SP3 Bluetooth, I could be using those for a mini setup or a portable setup, or if I was in a pinch, for a really long time. I would likely be using them while traveling, because otherwise for travel I would be using the Rabyang R830, which is huge in size and hard to carry around. I can take the SP3 Bluetooth in their package, the one that they come with, and I can use them without feeling bothered at all. I hope that you are feeling energized, and I hope that you are enjoying my content. I hope that you'll consider subscribing to Audiophile Heaven, like this video and share it with your friends to help me reach a wider audience, especially if you are enjoying my content. And thank you so much for watching. I hope we'll see each other really soon. Bye bye!